Adults like to believe they're the only ones who know how to protect their kids. They think the world is full of storms, and children are too small, too soft, too easy to break to see what's really hurting a family. But there's a truth people rarely admit. Sometimes adults are the last ones to notice the danger standing right in front of them. Because they're tired, because they're lonely, because they want to believe something good is finally here. And they fall for anything that looks perfect at the right moment. Kids don't. Kids don't trust a smile just because it shows up on time. They don't melt for sweet words. They don't mistake polite behavior for a good heart. They see the world differently, smaller, quieter, but clearer. And sometimes, a 10-year-old can see the truth a desperate father is trying so hard to ignore. This is one of those stories. A story where everyone assumes adults save children. But in the end, it was a child who stepped forward to protect her father from the person he trusted most. There are winter nights when the cold feels like it comes from inside the house, not from the air outside. That night, the long driveway leading to the big home looked quiet in a way that didn't feel normal, like the place was holding its breath. The porch light was already on, casting a soft yellow glow over the thin frost clinging to the stair rail. A 10-year-old girl sat on the stone step, holding a small notebook tightly. She didn't shiver. She didn't complain. She just sat there, as if she was listening for something adults always miss. Lily stared at the dark road and knew something was coming before she even heard it. The engine sound arrived first, sharp, loud, nothing like the cars that usually moved through this quiet neighborhood. Then the car appeared, bright paint, shiny enough to catch the streetlights. It didn't slow down for the cold. It slowed down so people could see it. A woman stepped out, blonde hair lifting in the wind, a coat too thin for winter, heels so narrow you'd wonder how she could walk on frozen stone. Her smile showed up before her eyes found anyone. Amber walked straight to the door, like she'd known this house for years. The door opened. Warm light spilled across the porch. James, Lily's father, stood in it with a strange smile. Not the smile he brought home after work. Not the smile he used when he looked at his daughter. This one was brighter, softer, and a little fragile. Amber leaned into him in a way that made Lily's chest tighten. Lily said nothing. She didn't stand up. She just held her notebook closer, the way someone holds a small shield when they feel something dangerous but can't explain it yet. Amber looked at her for 1 second. A short glance, but long enough for a smart child to feel weighed, measured, and sorted. And Lily understood, without anyone telling her, that this woman wasn't here for the family. She wasn't here for love. She wasn't filling the space her mother left behind. She was after something else, something adults hide behind nice smiles and pretty shoes. Lily was 10, small, quiet, but not blind. She knew something was starting, something she wasn't ready for, something she would have to face before any adult realized what was happening. When Amber started staying at the house longer, the air in that big place shifted in a way adults rarely notice. James was busy with meetings, calls, emails that kept him at his desk late into the night. Those empty hours left part of the house to just Amber and Lily. In the quiet afternoons, Amber walked around the living room like she was taking inventory. Her eyes paused on small things most people wouldn't look at. Lily's mother's jewelry box, an old family photo, edges fading. The antique watch James had kept for 20 years. She touched everything, not gently, not with care, but with the kind of look people use when they're valuing items. Lily watched from a distance and wondered why someone who'd only been here a few times could look at their things like they were items on a shelf waiting to be chosen. One evening, when Amber thought Lily was playing upstairs, she stood in the kitchen, hand on the cold stone counter, speaking on the phone in a voice Lily had never heard. Everything about her changed. No sweetness, no softness, no hint of someone trying to build a family. That voice was sharp, direct. The voice of someone planning something and assuming no one was listening. Lily stood behind the kitchen door, bare feet on the cold tile. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough to know this had nothing to do with love or wanting to belong here. After a while, Amber hung up, pulled her blonde hair forward, checked her reflection in the oven glass, and put the familiar smile back on before walking toward James. Lily saw both versions of her, the one who showed up when no one else was around, and the one she became when her father was standing nearby. And in that moment, the feeling Lily had carried quietly finally turned solid, clear as the porch light outside. Amber wasn't here to love anyone. She wasn't here to take care of anyone. She wasn't here to become part of this family. She was here for something else. Something Lily didn't have a name for yet, but it tightened her chest every time she heard Amber's heels cross the wooden floor. Lily closed her notebook. Not because she was scared Amber would see it, but because she knew she'd need to open it many more times in the days ahead. One weekend night, James took Lily and Amber out for dinner. The restaurant sat in the center of town. Warm lights on the glass, well-dressed people walking in and out, the kind of place that makes a 10-year-old sit a little straighter. They didn't get far into their first course. The steak was still half cut, steam still rising from the plates. Lily was trying to break a hard piece of bread when James's phone rang. It wasn't a normal ring. It had that sharp, urgent tone. The same kind that used to pull him away from dinners back when life for the two of them was still falling apart. James looked at the screen for one short beat, and something on his face shifted. Not much, not obvious, but enough for a sharp kid like Lily to know he wasn't staying. He stood almost immediately. He touched Lily's shoulder in a way heavier than words. Then he turned to Amber, said a few quick things, grabbed his coat, and walked out with dinner still sitting on the table. His seat was still warm, but the warmth faded fast the moment Amber turned back around. The smile she wore for half the meal fell off in an instant, as soon as James stepped through the glass door. And just as quickly, she put it back on. Pretty, light, and perfectly timed. Amber said she needed to stop by the restroom before driving Lily home. Her voice was calm, easy, nothing a normal person would question. But Lily wasn't a normal person. She didn't stand up. She didn't follow. She didn't take her eyes off the designer bag Amber left on the chair. Amber walked away, but her heels didn't head toward the restroom. They turned down the opposite hall, the hall leading to the VIP rooms, a place for people with private meetings ever walked into. Lily waited a few seconds before sliding off her chair, her small feet touching the cold tile. She walked slowly, keeping the distance the way kids do when they're watching something adults think they won't understand. From behind a large plant at the end of the hallway, Lily saw Amber slip through the VIP door. No explanation needed. The restroom was a cover to shake Lily off, a cover to do something she didn't want Lily to see, a cover to switch to her real face for 5, maybe 10 minutes, without James around. Lily stayed still in the dark. Her heartbeat is steady, no fear, no rush, just recording every step, every choice. Every small thing adults think children ignore. And in that moment, the moment James walked away with dinner left unfinished, Lily understood something clearly. She wasn't the one being taken along anymore. She was the one who had to follow. Lily stood in the hallway for a long moment before walking back to the table. The restaurant stayed bright. Adults kept talking. Plates kept coming out in the steady rhythm of the servers. Everything looked normal, so normal that no one could imagine anything important had just happened behind that VIP door. Lily sat back in her chair. The steak in front of her was cold. The dark sauce had turned stiff on top of the meat. No one asked if she was okay, but she didn't need them to. She opened her notebook, turned to the unfinished page from the last time she followed Amber, and began to write. Not a long entry, not full details, just a few short lines. Clean, tight. The way a smart kid keeps things under control. She wrote the time James left the table. She wrote the direction Amber turned. She wrote the exact spot of the VIP door. And she wrote her sense. Not her feelings, but the cold instinct that brushed past her when she saw Amber's face change the second James walked away. When she finished, Lily closed the notebook, slipped it into her coat pocket, and sat still like nothing had happened. Amber came back not long after. Lily didn't look up, but she recognized the sound of those heels on the floor. It wasn't the same sound as when Amber walked away. Amber pulled out her chair and acted as if they had never split up. Her face was set again, perfect, like someone had retouched her makeup in a small private room. But Lily didn't need to see her to know what had happened. And because of that, in that quiet second, Lily felt something she had never had before. A bit of an advantage, a bit of time, a bit of temporary safety. Not because Amber was kinder, not because James would return soon, but because Lily had finally seen what she needed to see. And sometimes, for a child facing an adult, one moment of clarity is enough to hold steady through the days ahead. Lily told no one. She didn't repeat what she had done. She didn't ask where Amber went. She only knew one simple thing. She would need more proof, and tonight, her notebook would open again. In the days after that dinner night, the big house stayed lit like always. Breakfast still came out on time. James was still left with the same old briefcase. Everything looked fine in the way outsiders think a father and daughter are living without cracks. Only Lily knew that wasn't true. She kept her notebook with her at all times, not because she feared losing it, but because every time Amber walked through the door, that feeling from the restaurant stirred the old worry Lily had carried for years. A worry that started long before Amber. Lily remembered the days her mother was in the hospital. Not clear pictures, just scraps of sound and light. The smell of disinfectant. A small room that stayed cold even with the heater on. And James's face when he thought Lily wasn't looking. After her mother was gone, the house that once held laughter went silent like an empty place. James worked late, drank coffee instead of dinner, kept every light on at night as if something waited in the dark. Lily was young, but she remembered trying to keep him from breaking again. She sat beside him in the living room, scribbling in a notebook, saying nothing, just staying there so he knew he wasn't alone. And when things slowly steadied, when James began to smile a little more, when warmth returned to the house, Lily finally learned how to breathe without hurting. That's why, when Amber showed up, pretty, confident, sharp, Lily didn't simply dislike her. She was scared. Scared her father would trust the wrong person again. Scared she'd one day sit in a quiet house, watching him pick himself up from another hit he didn't deserve. Scared the old loss would return in a different shape. And that fear didn't need anyone to tell Lily what to do. It guided her, told her to watch, to notice details, to document everything, to understand exactly who was stepping into their life. Not because she liked spying, not because she wanted drama, but because she had watched someone lose everything once. Once was enough. And that's why, every time Amber walked through the front door, Lily tightened her grip on the notebook, as if reminding herself, I have to protect my dad, even if he doesn't know it. In the days that followed, James tried to bring Amber into Lily's life the way adults do when they believe something good is beginning. He asked Lily to come down for dinner, told her to sit closer to Amber, said Amber liked kids, said she wanted to understand Lily, said everyone deserves a chance. Lily listened, but her eyes stayed on other things. On the way, Amber fixed her hair whenever James looked at her, on how Amber always stepped into the best light in the room. On the way, she looked at the house like it was something she could hold if she pressed the right buttons. One evening, James sat at the long dining table, papers spread in front of him. Lily sat across from him, drawing in her notebook like usual. He looked up, wanting to say something, but he stopped when Lily lifted her eyes to him. It wasn't a defiant look, not angry, just quiet, and older than a 10-year-old should be. In that look, James saw what he'd been avoiding. His daughter wasn't a child who simply accepted whoever he brought into the house. Lily didn't speak, didn't complain, didn't ask questions. But James knew that her silence held more than she wanted to say. He closed the folder, sat still for a few seconds, as if weighing a question he didn't want to answer. Lily bent over her drawing again, but her small shoulders didn't sit lightly the way most 10-year-olds do. For a brief moment, the two of them said nothing, yet saw each other more clearly than some families do in years. James looked at Lily and knew she was trying to protect him. And Lily looked at James and knew he was trying to do what felt right, even without knowing everything that was happening. No one won, no one lost. Just a father and daughter sitting across a long wooden table, both holding the same truth. They were scared of losing each other, and neither knew how to say it. In the days after that, Amber showed up at the house more often. Morning in the kitchen, afternoons stretched out on the living room couch, evenings that lasted until the porch lights clicked off. And Lily knew she couldn't do all of this alone. She started looking for someone who wasn't on Amber's side, wasn't on James's side, but was on the side of the truth. That person was Mr. Cole, the old caretaker who'd lived here since before she was born. He didn't talk much, didn't pry, didn't insert himself into anyone's life. But he was the kind of man who could read the mood of a house by the sound of footsteps on the wood floor. One afternoon, while Amber was busy trying on clothes upstairs, Lily sat on the back steps, her notebook half open on her lap. Mr. Cole walked by, slow like always, but paused just long enough to see she wasn't just drawing. He didn't ask questions, didn't check her face. He just looked at Lily the way adults do when they've seen enough in life to know the difference between normal silence and silence that's hiding something. Lily closed the notebook, but didn't hide it behind her. She knew Mr. Cole had seen, and in that moment, she felt clearly that he wasn't the kind of adult who would ruin what she was trying to do. Mr. Cole bent down, picked up a fallen leaf near her feet, turned it in his hand like an old habit, then dropped it in the trash bin. But the way he did it, slow, steady, felt like his way of saying he understood everything without needing a single word. Lily opened the notebook again, wrote a few lines, short and tight like always. She didn't hide it, didn't cover the page, enough for him to see, but not enough for him to worry. And he just nodded once before walking away, leaving Lily her space. Later that afternoon, when Amber walked down the stairs with her handbag and her face set perfectly again, Lily watched her leave the house, then glanced toward the kitchen door where Mr. Cole had passed earlier. For the first time in weeks, Lily didn't feel completely alone. Not because she had a clear ally, not because anyone promised to help, but because in this too big house, there was at least one adult who understood her silence without judging her. And sometimes, one person like that is enough for a child to keep doing what they know is right. In the days after the restaurant night, Lily stopped hiding. She no longer pretended to be carefree, innocent, or unaware. Instead, she started doing something small, something that worked like a stone in an adult's shoe. Annoying, steady, impossible to ignore. In the morning, when Amber walked down the stairs, Lily sat at the table with her notebook open. Not hidden, not covered, not held too low. She glanced, just for a second, at the ring on Amber's hand, then wrote a short line. No explanation, no extra movement, but enough to unsettle someone with something to hide. At noon, Amber sat in the living room, scrolling through her phone, fixing her hair, adjusting her dress, checking her nails. Lily walked by, didn't stare, just looked for one beat, then opened the notebook and wrote again. Amber looked up. Lily closed the notebook like it was routine, then went to the kitchen for water. No questions, no excuses. But Amber felt it clearly. This child knew more than she was supposed to. In the afternoon, Amber stood in the kitchen, bending down to tie her shoelaces. Lily walked in at that exact moment. Their eyes met. Lily opened the notebook, wrote a few words. Calm, steady. Amber stood up, and for half a second, her expression cracked. The way adults react when they fear a small secret is being seen. That night, Lily sat in the corner of the living room, not writing, just watching Amber each time she stood from the couch. Those looks weren't enough to start a fight, but enough to make someone like Amber feel watched. And just as Lily expected, Amber began watching her back. More than needed. More than adults watch children. Lily understood. People with secrets always check who knows what. So she didn't do anything foolish like leaving the notebook open, didn't reveal details, didn't let Amber see a page. She simply placed the notebook in the drawer of her room, exactly where it always stayed. Not shifted, not cracked open, not staged. But the difference was this. After a full week, Lily had planted enough curiosity to turn an ordinary notebook into a locked box in Amber's mind. Finally, Lily slipped a small recorder into her coat pocket. She knew everything was ready. All she needed, it was for Amber to step into the trap on her own. That night, after James went upstairs to work, Amber walked down the hallway in a way that wasn't normal. No heels clicking. No calling anyone's name. No trace of her perfume floating behind her. She stopped outside Lily's door. No knock, no pause, no hesitation. She walked in like she was the new owner of the house. The bedroom light hit her face. Not the sweet look she saved for James, but something sharp, proud, and scared all at once. Amber opened the drawer. She couldn't help herself. She pulled the notebook out, flipped page 1, page 2, page 3. Each page made her lose a little more control. Not because Lily wrote too much, but because Lily wrote exactly the things Amber didn't want anyone to know. The times she showed up, her shifting habits, her odd behavior, every strange turn she took, every phone call that didn't sound honest. All written in a child's handwriting, not accusing, just recorded. And that scared Amber more than any accusation could. Amber stood there. Lily's notebook was open in her hands, her shoulders tight like someone reading a truth they hoped it didn't exist. No softness left, no polite smile, just a face stripped bare. Lily walked into the room right then, not to confront her, but because she had let Amber believe she was gone long enough for the mask to fall. Amber turned, looked straight at her. No patience. The look adults use when they feel cornered and want to strike first. The notebook lay open on the table, the simple lines on the page reflecting everything Amber had tried to hide. She looked at Lily with a forced smile that held nothing kind. And when she spoke, her voice changed completely. No sweetness, no softness, just the bare voice of someone who had dropped every mask. Amber talked about the notebook, like it was a silly child's game. But the way she talked proved every word Lily wrote was true. She admitted the kindness was an act, admitted the sweetness was a costume. Admittedly, she knew exactly what she wanted from a rich man. And then she said, in a small, sharp voice, that Lily sees her, writing about her, or doubting her changed nothing. Because, according to Amber, James would always choose the woman who knew how to look perfect, not the child with a notebook full of lines. Amber leaned closer to Lily, told her, calm but cruel, that she played the role too well to be exposed by a 10-year-old. Her voice sounded steady, but carried the poison belief that she owned the outcome, that James would trust her, stand with her, protect her, as long as she kept performing. She walked out of the room like someone who thought she had won something. But Amber didn't know. Every word she bragged, every threat, every confession about how well she faked everything, was already recording inside the small device in Lily's pocket. When the door closed, Lily finally reached into her coat. The recorder was still running. The tiny light blinked, capturing everything Amber had said. No smile on Lily's face, no joy, no triumph. Just a steady truth. Amber had shown who she really was, and all Lily had to do was keeping the truth in her hands. She sat on her bedroom floor, back against the bed. The small recorder is held in both hands. It was light, but the weight in her chest was heavier than anything she had ever carried. Outside the door, Amber's footsteps faded and disappeared at the end of the hall. The house went back to what it always was. Big, empty, and full of quiet spaces that made you hear the things you feared most. Lily didn't replay the recording. She didn't need to. Every word Amber said was already carved into her mind. Lily knew she'd been right all along, but being right didn't bring the relief people imagined. It brought something else. A sadness she'd known since she was much younger. She set the recorder beside her, pulled her knees to her chest, as if trying to make herself smaller. She didn't cry, but her chest carried the same feeling she had been outside the hospital years ago, watching the ER doors close. She wasn't afraid of Amber. Lily saw that clearly. Amber was just an adult playing a role she couldn't control herself anymore. What Lily feared was James, not him. But the possibility he'd trust the wrong person again. The possibility he'd choose a polished face because it showed up at the exact moment he wanted something good to believe in. Lily understood her father better than anyone. She understood his loneliness, understood how he'd fought to stand back up after years of loss, understood how he wanted to open his heart, but didn't know the right way to do it. Lily feared that if Amber won, the house would go dark again like it once did. And she feared that not just for herself. She picked up the recorder again and held it close. A harsh truth settled in her. Worse than anything Amber had said. No one else knew the truth. No one saw what she saw. No one was protecting her father but her. That truth straightened her back without her noticing. Not because she wanted to be a hero, not because she wanted a fight, but because she didn't want to lose the only thing she had left after all these years. A father who had tried so hard to stand up again for her. She sat there for a long time, until the hallway light faded and the whole house fell quiet. When she finally stood, her small hand still held the recorder, as if it wasn't just a device but the only thing keeping her father safe. She didn't want to hurt him. She didn't want to ruin his relationship. She wasn't jealous. She wasn't selfish. She simply understood something better than anyone in that house. If the truth stayed hidden, her father would be the one who paid the price. And tonight, now that Amber had shown her real face, there was no turning back. Lily would have to speak up. Even if adults didn't want to listen, she would have to protect her family in the only way she could. She didn't choose this fight, but Lily knew she was the only one who could end it. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds in Lily's room in a way that didn't match what the night before had been. She woke earlier than usual, not from nerves, not from fear, but because a decision had settled inside her and wouldn't go away. She sat up and looked toward the drawer where the recorder was kept. The feeling in her chest wasn't victory or defeat. It was the weight of a truth too big for a 10-year-old to carry. When Lily walked downstairs, James was in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil. The morning light made his face look tired in that adult way people don't hide as well as they think. He looked at Lily and smiled like he always did, but something in the smile was slightly off. Maybe work. Maybe Amber. Maybe the things he didn't realize yet. Lily stood at the end of the kitchen table, her hand resting on the back of a chair, thinking about what would happen if she told him everything right now. James believed Amber, believed in the perfection she performed, believed in a peaceful future he was trying to hold on. If Lily chose the wrong moment, it wouldn't just make him doubt her. It could push him closer to the woman the only thought was good. Lily understood that better than anyone. And because she understood, she knew she couldn't speak yet. Not from fear, but because protecting her father meant doing it the right way, not the fast way. Amber walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, looking perfectly arranged. Hair brushed. A faint perfume meant to leave an impression. A well-timed smile as James turned around. Everything about Amber was placed exactly where she wanted it. The right eyes, the right smile, the right tone, the right distance between her hands. And Lily saw all of it. She saw the shift in Amber's eyes when James looked and when he didn't. She saw the way Amber's hand rested on James's shoulder in a natural way, but only when she knew Lily was watching. She saw how Amber scored small points in every tiny move she made. Not 1 second of Amber was real. And in that moment, Lily understood something else. If she spoke now, James would see nothing but two people who didn't get along. He wouldn't see the mask Amber wore. A truth, to be believed, has to arrive at the right time. That day moved the same way the big house always did. Morning with James, leaving for work. Afternoon with Amber, arranging something in the living room. Evening with the porch lights clicking on at the exact time. Everything looked so normal that anyone watching from outside would think this was a happy family. Only Lily knew it wasn't. That night, Amber redecorated a corner of the living room, placing fake memory photos by the wine cabinet, moving things around like she already owned the house. Lily stood at the end of the hallway, watching every small move. No writing, no reaction. Just watching. Amber started walking through the house, as if the line between guest and someone who lives here had faded overnight. The more Lily watched, the more certain she became that staying silent was no longer an option. She went to her room, opened the wooden drawer, and lifted the recorder into her hands. She played a short part. Amber's voice cracked through the quiet air, sharp, confessing, threatening, so sure James would never see her real face. Lily sat on the floor, listened for a few seconds, then switched it off. Not out of fear, not out of discomfort, but because she understood something. From this moment on, she wasn't the child on the sidelines anymore. Whether she wanted it or not, she was inside the story now, and she couldn't go back to the safe place she used to stand. She had to protect her father, not just because of family, not just because of worry, but because it was what her mother would have wanted her to do if she were still here. Lily placed both hands on the recorder, like placing a quiet promise she didn't need to say it out loud. She left her room and walked to the kitchen, where Mr. Cole was folding the dish towel like he did every night. Lily stood by the kitchen doorway, not calling him, not speaking, just standing long enough for him to look over. He saw her eyes, and with the kind of instinct only a man who had lived in this house too long could have, he knew she was carrying something heavier than usual. He didn't ask, didn't press, didn't intrude. He simply set the towel down, poured water into the cup Lily always used, and slid it toward her in a quiet way that said, "When you're ready, I'll be here." Lily understood and nodded just once. It wasn't a plan, it wasn't a promise, but it was the first time she wasn't alone in her decision. Later that night, after Amber left and the house grew quiet again, Lily walked into her father's room and stood by the door, watching him work under the desk lamp. He was still the man who had lifted her back up with everything he had left after that loss years ago. And Lily knew. She had to return that protection in her own way. Not by destroying anything, not by fighting anyone, not by hurting people without reason, just by refusing to let her father be fooled. She went back to her room, set the recorder on the table, and for the first time, felt she had chosen her path. No more hesitation, no turning back. Lily had chosen the side of truth, and once she took that side, no one could pull her away from it. That afternoon, the house felt quiet in a way that wasn't normal. James came home earlier than usual, dust on his coat, a tired face. You only notice when you've lived with someone long enough. He stepped through the door, and Amber was already waiting in the living room. Dressed perfectly, smile set in place, standing like she owned the space. Lily stood halfway up the stairs, not hiding, not backing away. Her hand in her jacket pocket, touching the recorder, knowing the moment couldn't wait anymore. Amber moved closer to James. Her smile softened. Her voice went sweet, but every word aimed straight at Lily. She talked about how Lily was distant, disrespectful, how Lily hurt her feelings, sugar on the surface, sharp underneath. Lily didn't react, didn't defend herself, didn't look directly at Amber, but she saw the confidence on Amber's face. The kind people have when they believe they already control the adults in the room. James listened, not fully understanding. He only saw Amber speaking softly and Lily standing still. That was the moment Lily stepped down the stairs, one slow step at a time, trying to keep her heart steady. She walked to the coffee table, set the recorder down, didn't say a word, pressed play, and stepped back. Amber's voice filled the room. Not the sweet one, not the careful one, the real one. Cold, mocking, confessing things she never meant anyone to hear. Her reasons for being here, her plans, her contempt for Lily, her certainty that James would believe anything if it looked perfect enough, even the quiet threats she whispered the night before. James froze. Amber's face shattered in seconds. She tried to explain, tried to smile, tried to rebuild the mask. But every word she said was crushed by her own voice coming from the recorder. There was nowhere left to stand, nowhere left to lie. She grabbed her purse and walked out without anyone asking her to. The door closed softly behind her, but the sound felt like the end of a role that should have ended a long time ago. No yelling, no chaos. Just the quiet failure of someone who thought she'd never be caught. James sat down, hands on his knees. He didn't look at Lily yet. He let out a long breath. The kind people release when they finally face the thing they didn't want to see. Lily stepped closer. Didn't touch him. Didn't speak. Just stood near enough for him to feel that she did this not to win something, but to keep their family from breaking the wrong way. After a long moment, James looked up at her. No anger, no disappointment, only gratitude, and a quiet sadness for himself, for not seeing what his daughter had seen so early. Lily lowered her head. James reached out and touched her shoulder. A small touch, but enough to say everything they didn't know how to put it into words. On the table beside them, the old photo frame of the three of them still sat in its place. James picked it up, adjusted it gently, as if brushing off years of dust. Lily watched him. Her eyes are slowing down with old memories. Neither of them said her name, but her presence was right there in the quiet between them. James set the frame down, and his hand rested on Lily's back. She leaned her head against his shoulder, simple, small, but enough to put the house back together. The porch lights flicked on at their usual time, and the house returned to its old rhythm, warm, true, with no room left for anything fake. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt that she and her father were finally looking in the same direction, where her mother was, where their memories lived, where the old pain rested, and where the truth had finally found its place.